let's come back and talk about Will Stallings first before we get to this Tate news. Stallings commits, 3-star running back. He's a size back rather than a speed back. 6'1", 222 pounds. An interesting pickup, particularly interesting because Stallings is actually a linebacker. He was listed. I was looking at his and it said running back in the class of 2023 commits to Tennessee. I click on it, and then it says he's the number 91 linebacker in the class of 2023. And I was like, that's interesting. So it seems like it's potentially a Jeremy Banks situation where you get a kid that's just built. He's just a built athlete, plays on both sides of the ball in high school or something like that. And Josh Heupel sees him and goes, hey, that's a kid that we could use a running back, all-purpose back kind of style, I would assume. And that's interesting. But did you have any thoughts on Stallings and kind of what I would say was kind of interesting to me is the strategy here to take a kid who's also a linebacker, take him as a running back. What were your thoughts seeing that?
Well, I initially saw a few eye rolls from what we call the Nega Vols on social media, where they're like, "Oh, it's just a 3-star running back, and it's not a big deal." But you know, you can only put recruiting rankings are important, and typically the teams landing top 10 classes are going to be the ones that dominate college football, of course. But there's always outliers, and Alabama, Georgia, they take some guys that aren't necessarily 5-star guys that maybe you don't. Well, here's what really happens a lot of times: Alabama will take a guy that might be a high 3-star or low 4-star, and suddenly they get bumped up because they committed to Alabama and Georgia because recruiting services recognize, and whether they admit it or not, they recognize that Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, these programs, they evaluate talent well. Obviously, they're the best teams in the country for a reason. So if they're picking a guy up, taking a commitment from a guy that's not highly rated, they probably figure, hey, we haven't really evaluated this guy the correct way, so they end up getting a ratings bump. We also see the opposite happen to Tennessee players from time to time, where they get dropped down a bit. But as far as Stallings, I mean, like you said, he's a built guy. I mean, he's prototypical running back size, 6 foot, 220 some pounds. That is NFL running back size. That's what you want. Obviously, he's a physical guy if he's playing linebacker in high school and could, project to play there at the next level. So you're getting a running back that's got the physicality. Like you said, he's an all-purpose back. He said he feels like he can do everything. He can run outside the tackles, run inside the tackles. Tennessee really missed that running between the tackles type running back last year. That was like the real Achilles heel of Josh Heupel's offense was 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, trying to pick up those short yardage situations, and they just get stopped at the line of scrimmage. I mean, that's tough to pick up those 3 yards in the SEC. You've got to have a guy that can run between the tackles and absorb some contact and fall forward for that extra 2 or 3 yards. And I think Josh Heupel recognizes that Stallings, a linebacker who also plays running back, can be that in his offense. And then you've got the fallback option of if he doesn't work out at running back, like you said with Jeremy Banks, maybe you flip him to the defensive side of the ball. Maybe he's like Banks and he can't hold on to the ball. I mean, that was kind of the reason Banks kind of got shifted to the defensive side of the ball, as he played with a lot of violence. He was a very violent runner, but he fumbled too much. You've always got that possibility too. So you're taking a guy that's a 3-star, but he could potentially fill 2 different roles. It gives you a lot of versatility there. I think it's a really smart pickup. It's another kid from out west too. It just shows how Tennessee's kind of scouring the whole country to add players that fit the program.
I agree completely. It was a glaring problem last season in short yardage, where you just didn't have the dude to punch the ball forward, and you need it. It is integral. Even if you run Josh Heupel's crazy offense, you got to have somebody like that. And ideally, you could have this kid also be an every down back. It's really, with a 3-star, it's always a total crapshoot. It's a total crapshoot with any player, but with a 3-star in particular, it can kind of take 1 of 2 routes where it just, the kid almost never even sees the field and he's a perpetual backup, which happens decently often, or he becomes the guy. I mean, Jabari Small, I believe he was just a 3-star, and he's essentially your starting running back now, and a really dynamic player that I'm excited to see how he advances forward. But yeah, you just look at that running back room size wise. Let's see. I had the roster open. Where you at? Running back, RB.
Oh,
Come
yeah,
on, somebody. Here it is.
Jalen Wright's a little on the smaller side. I'm
Yep.
not
So
sure what his
you
weight
had
is.
Jabari Small, 5'11", 213. Jalen Wright, 5'11", 200. Justin Williams Thomas. We've added a Thomas onto his name, I guess. Justin Williams Thomas, 6', 210. And the only back that is comparable to the 6'1", 222 is Lyneth Whitehead, who is 6'2", 220. But Lyneth Whitehead was used sparingly
He does
last
not have
season.
the speed, I don't think, to
Yeah.
really. And Whitehead was a similar situation as Stallings, where Whitehead signed under Jeremy Pruitt. One of the reasons he signed with Tennessee is because Tennessee wanted to use him at running back instead of linebacker. I've argued that maybe Tennessee should try him at linebacker, but I just don't think the speed is there, apparently, for him to really make much of an impact in the SEC, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is literally what I was just talking about. I mean, it's a kid that you picked up, and he just is kind of perpetually not going to see the field. It happens, and hopefully he can find a spot, but it just doesn't seem like maybe in Josh Heupel's offense it's really going to be it. But maybe Heupel's cooking something up that we don't know about.
He has to believe in the kid, because you don't take a 3-star. I mean, he's rated. 24/7 Sports rates him as the 1,188th best player in the nation in the 2023 class. There's a lot of running backs ahead of him in those rankings. Obviously, he's not even. I wouldn't even know where he's ranked as a running back, because they don't even view him as a running back.
He's ranked as a linebacker.
Yeah, but Heupel and his staff clearly see something in him. For them to take a commitment from him in June, when they've got quite a few spots left. I think he's the 10th commit to this class. But for them to take this commitment from a running back in June, away maybe some other running backs that you were targeting, because they're if you've already got a guy, you're going to usually take more than one running back, of course. But again, that might maybe they want to go to South Carolina instead of Tennessee, because South Carolina doesn't have a running back committed, or whatever the case. Whatever Tennessee sees in Stallings, they obviously like. They obviously think more highly of him than 24/7 Sports and some of the other recruiting services. So you gotta trust Hype on his evaluations. I mean, he's been able to take a lot of players that weren't highly rated on this roster, a roster that was not in good shape after Pruitt left, where a lot of the best players ended up transferring out, and turned them into a 7-win team when Pruitt won 3 games out of 10 with them the previous year. You got to have some faith, and until he gives me a reason to not believe his evaluations in players, I'm gonna tend to side with, like, okay, this is a good pickup.
Yeah, I like it. It fills a need on the roster, and that we can just kind of leave it there, because really
it's encouraging that Heupel recognizes that that's a need too, because that would be very frustrating if you go into, okay, you had that problem in 2021 with the short yardage situations, but if it's still a major issue in 2022, then you start saying, okay, why? This is giving me shades of Butch Jones and Jeremy Pruitt, where we're seeing the same issues over and over, and it's not getting better. So that's encouraging too, that he kind of sees that that's a need.
Absolutely. Anything to help address the small amount of problems that we saw with Heupel, which we've kind of said they were all with his coaching style, and things like that, and to see that he's kind of going, all right, we actually do need a short yardage guy, a more power guy. I like it. I think it's good, but you never know with the 3-star guys. Kid could never see the field. Kid could be your starting running back in 2 years. We'll just have to see.
It's crazy. I mean, the NFL is littered with former 3-star players. There's probably more 3-star players in the NFL than any other position. Now, part of that's because the quantity. There's way more 3-star players coming out of high school than 4 stars and 5 stars. But a lot of those guys turn into NFL players. A lot of them are former running backs. So, man, we'll see. Maybe they found a little hidden gem here.
Hopefully, like you said, his fellow Bishop Gorman alum Cedric Tillman is as of last week, a preseason All-American, according to Phil Steele. So maybe they can find another Las Vegas-based diamond in the rough there. We'll see.